And I was done. I was ready to leave the retreat and never come back because I was like, I don't need to do this. I don't see the benefit of it the next night. So I was like, okay, I'll be brave. I'll do it again. Oh, and he even said, he goes, if you have another terrible, you can come in here and punch me in the face.
Whoa.
And I was like, oh, that's wow. He's very confident.
Yeah.
Like, he goes, I've just seen this a lot. People have a really bad first night, and the second night will be better. And so I gave it a second shot, and the second night, it was the most magical thing, one of the most magical things I've ever experienced.
Really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
For those listening, Shaman Oaks makes YouTube videos on like psychedelics, psychic phenomena, and now you're doing energy healing and that sort of realm, spirituality. Is that a fair assessment, or how would you describe
It's fair.
what you do?
I still feel weird about the whole energy healing thing, the whole spiritual side. I feel more akin to like what you do and what Dakota does and what PsychedSubstance does. Like, psychedelics are more like, people that are into psychedelics are more my people than the spiritual people, because they tend to go a little too wacky for me. So I'm like in that realm, but I'm like regret it at the same time, where I'm like very like I'm resistant to a lot of the current fads, I would say.
Right. Well, what do you mean by people get a bit wacky in this realm?
Well, in the spiritual part, it's like they like too much of like the people that are very much into manifesting and do this in 30 seconds you can have whatever you want. And it's like, that stuff makes me so sick. And people try to tell me to make manifesting videos. If you ever see me making a manifest video, like, I hope I lose all my subscribers. Like,
slap me in the face right now.
Yeah,
that's so funny. Yeah, I'd say like just a lot of, maybe there's a lot of purists and maybe people going too woo woo. But I don't know, man. Like sometimes you experience things that are just so inexplicable that I don't know. It's really hard to ground it in reality. Do you struggle with that?
Oh, incredibly. Yeah. Like, I have a really hard time believing in anything until I experience it myself. And that's the way I was with energy healing. Like if someone was actually, one of my friends tried to get me into energy healing, like 3 months before I did. And I wasn't really nice to them. I was just like, that is a bunch of like adults playing pretend. That stuff's not real. Like, I was kind of a dick about it. And then once I experienced it for myself, I was like, holy shit, like this is something. And I don't like, I'm not sure what exactly it is, but there's something. And like, as you saw at Arcana, like they're very much into energy. And so it's like the two worlds feel very separate, but they're actually not. So
how would you explain energy healing to someone who's never heard of it before, or maybe a skeptic who's listening? Like, what the fuck's this energy healing you guys are talking about?
Yeah, I would just say for me, I'm not a healer. I don't do any healing. What I do is I'm a channel for energy, and I don't know why it needs me, but it's almost like I go out and I can grab onto an electrical line, and the electricity comes to me and gets to you. I don't really know what it's healing, what it's doing, but people have sent me a lot of stories and a lot of testimonials saying, oh, holy shit, I felt this, I felt that. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen my first energy video that I posted. And I even said in it, like, I'm not going to tell you what you might feel. I just post it in the comments. And then, because I don't like anybody to like lead you, like, okay, you're going to feel this, you're going to feel that, because then they might.
Right. Yeah. Because your mind could be impressionable. I just say,
exactly. So I like to leave it up to people, and enough people left comments, and a lot of people had similar comments that I'm like, okay, this is real, and they're not just like pulling my leg, because I thought people were even just going to lie to me on my videos. So
just to be nice.
Yeah, exactly. Because I've seen other energy healing videos, and I don't feel anything from the videos. And I've seen people that leave comments, and it seems like they're just being nice. And so, yeah, I'm always worried about that.
Yeah, I saw your latest one. I was like reading through the comments, and I saw some very profound reactions, like just like intense tingling or vibrations or whatever. like, what percentage, or I don't even want to ask what percentage, but how many people, or what kind of people do you find are more sensitive to these energy healings where they actually feel something?
I haven't figured it out 100%, but I've found that people that are into acupuncture tend to feel it more. 'Cause I just think it's your energy has to be clear for it to flow. Because like, well, I have a friend whose dad is in Ohio, which I don't know what you know about the United States, but Ohio is very, he's a very redneck sort of a guy. Like, he doesn't believe in any of this sort of stuff. You know, he just drinks his beer and mows his lawn, does stuff like that. And so he heard about this energy healing thing, and he was like, "You're crazy. You're one of those LA weirdos." And I'm like, yeah, probably.
Yeah.
But like, if you ever want to try it, you can try it. And though actually, I was having a beer with him, and he said something about how he goes to acupuncture for his neck. And I was like, oh shit, you might actually be able to feel this. You want to try it sometime? And I tried it, and I just did it remotely, where he was in Ohio, I was in LA. I did it over the text. Like, I don't have to see you. I don't have to hear you. I just say, okay, just lay down, close your eyes, and relax, and just experience whatever it is you experience. That's what I like to say. And, we did that for about 10 minutes. I told him it was over, and he called me right away. And he was like, what was that? Like, that was the weirdest thing. I felt this tingling, and now this pain in my neck is gone. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. It's weird, but I'm doing it because it seems to help people.
That's so crazy, man.
So
it's so hard to explain.
But it's because he was into acupuncture that I think his energy was clear. But then it's weird to me how some people have super strong experiences and other people have nothing, or they'll feel it's very minor. But I have found that the more people do the videos, or the more people that work on their energy, they tend to be clear and they'll feel it more.
Right. So it's sort of like how you practice meditation. Like, the more you practice meditation, the easier it is to slip into that state. Yeah. Maybe.
I hope so. I mean, I wish I could figure out how to make everyone feel it, because once you feel it, it's like you can't look at the world the same way. It's kind of like, I think, like the first time I did DMT, it's like, I was like, holy shit, like, what? This is a whole, like, you've smoked DMT, right? Just plain DMT?
Yeah. That one was weird.
Yeah. Like, did you meet the lady?
I didn't meet, I had one of the most memorable ones in terms of contacting entities and stuff was just like a flood of them. Like, one was like this Pirates of the Caribbean, black dreadlocky kind of golden teeth sort of lady. Really, really bizarre. And then once I saw like Pegasus, like literally the classic horse with the wings, and then I would see Buddha. But it wasn't like I was having a dialogue with these entities. They were kind of just passing through. Yeah, like with ayahuasca, I've had more of like the deep, profound, like actual communication. Like, I can at least translate it in my mind, whereas DMT was just like, and then what the fuck? I think I remember seeing this lady, like, yeah, but I don't think I saw the DMT lady that you talk about in your videos. Was that your first?
I only saw her the first couple times I ever did it. I saw her, and then I never saw her again. But then I got other friends to try it, and they would see her.
Interesting.
Or, they mentioned they met a lady. So I don't know. It's weird, but it's like, when I got into that, when I was in that first realm the first time, and I was like there, and it was just as real as this, then I was like, okay, like, there are other dimensions. I don't know what's going on, but there is something more than we know. So
how did
that's
you
the kind of what?
Oh, sorry to cut you off.
That's kind of what.
Yeah.
That's kind of what energy healing did when I experienced it for the first time. I was like shaking, and like my muscles in my face and my neck were like just contracting, and I was like, I couldn't do this to myself if I wanted to, and I didn't even know this was like something that people experienced. So it was just one of those things. It was just too undeniable for me to deny. But at the same time, like, if you were like, oh, I have a friend, he's an energy healer, I'm like, yeah, right. I'm always skeptical of everything right away, which people don't think that about me, because they see my videos and like, oh, you must be into all this like wacky stuff. And I'm like, not unless I experience it.
Yeah. I can tell you're like very grounded, and like, I kind of relate in how you're like radically open-minded, but at the same time you're a skeptic, sort of thing. Yeah. Thank you. How the hell did you even get into this crazy world of psychedelics? And what was your first substance?
What was my first substance? So I've never been good. Like, so the very first substance I ever heard of, but I never actually tried, was salvia. So I never tried salvia, but
that's a weird one.
But I had a friend who I worked with, and he would tell me about his salvia stories, and then I would get on these forums and just read salvia stories all day, like while I was at work. And I was like, holy shit, I got to try that at some point. I tried weed, which weed isn't supposed to be psychoactive, but that's how I kind of know that I'm not wired like everybody else. Like, I hallucinate on weed. A lot of people don't believe me, but if you watch me, you'll see me. So I have other friends that are like, you're not smoking the right way. You have to smoke it this way. And then I get really paranoid. I can't tell if I'm dreaming or if it's real. Or I can't tell if I'm thinking something or saying it out loud. I go in and out of like a dream state where it's like all of a sudden I'll just be like, did I just like scream? And they'll be, no, like, because in my head, like one time I was smoking it, I didn't really know how to smoke it. So I was breathing it in and swallowing it, like swallowing the smoke, which is stupid. And then I was out on this balcony. It was in college. I was on this balcony, and in my head, I went like that. And I saw a shockwave come out, and I saw all the buildings like shake. And then I popped out of it, and then I was like, did I just yell? And they were like, yeah, you kind of went like, ah. I was like, I'm weird. This is weird. And I have to like go sit down.
Whoa. So how old were you when you first
like
smoked weed?
I would say 22, 20. I don't know. I would just try to be cool because I had a lot of friends that smoked weed, and I've a lot of people that I respect that smoke weed. And I think it's actually really good for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And then I just kind of, I'm jealous of people that can do it. So I would try off and on throughout the years to see if I could handle it. And then I can't. So I would think that's like my first real like experience was with mushrooms, like in the mountains with friends, like hanging out in a hot tub, drinking, taking mushrooms, like not the appropriate way to do it. And
was it still good?
I found out about DMT. Oh, it was, well, so like a lot of things with me, I do things to the extreme. And so like the first night was amazing. I loved it. The second night, I'm like, okay, that was great the first time. I bet if I do even more, it'll be even better. And then some girl that was there also had weed drops. And so I did weed drops on top of mushrooms. Oh. And I was seeing like ghost ladies like flying around. And there was like, I wanted to go inside to be by myself. And I looked down and there was like these bushes and they had turned into these like evil gnomes and they were like watching me. And it was, yeah.
Do you believe that these entities are real, like actually existing in different dimensions, or do you think it's a projection of your mind? Or is it the whole paradoxical question that it's either and or?
I think it depends on the substance for me. Like, I don't think, because it depends on the experience. Like that weed, I don't think what I experienced on weed was like real, obviously. Mushrooms, that time definitely wasn't real. Like that was just weird shit happening. But I had a mushroom experience right before I left for ayahuasca, or a month or two before I left for ayahuasca. And I was trying to microdose. I was trying not to even have a strong experience. I was just trying to help with like my depression. And so I would take a little bit and I would walk around like the neighborhood, and I can always tell when mushrooms kick in because everything gets a little bit more 3D, a little bit more colorful. And I was walking around and it wasn't doing that, which is good when you microdose. It's not supposed to do anything. But I was like, oh, like I hope I didn't like waste this, because I do want to experience it a little bit. And I remember it was like Terrence McKenna or someone says, go lay down in the complete darkness, close your eyes and see what you experience. And I was like, I've never done that on mushrooms, so let's go try it. I went into my room, lay down on my bed, turned on some music, closed my eyes, and I saw like these cat people. Like it looked almost straight out of like Egyptian. And normally I don't see beings on mushrooms. Usually it's just, my vision changes or whatever, and I feel better and I feel happy. But this was seeing these cat people, and every time I had a thought of a question, they would answer it. And I had this whole conversation about what's the point of life, and I forgot who is God and what is God. And it was pretty profound, and it's not what I was expecting. And I think like those are like always the better experiences when you don't go in, I guess, expecting anything.
Yeah, definitely.
But I don't think the cat people are real. Like, so I don't know. DMT is the only one where I hung out with an entity that seems to exist because she was following me in each. So yeah, so the first 2 times I smoked it, she was there, and the third time I smoked it a week later, she was kind of there, and the fourth, and another week later, she was there again. And I've done that with other friends that have smoked it. They said the same thing. It's like she seems to remember what she told you before, and the story like continues. So I don't know. To be honest, I don't like saying it's definitely one thing. It's like I interviewed a guy that had a near-death experience, and I was talking to him about it, and I was like, well, could it just be in your head? And it's like, it's possible. You know, the mind is a crazy thing. It's possible. It sure as hell doesn't feel that way. And that's the kind of the way I describe DMT. It's like, sure as hell didn't feel that way. But
yeah, exactly. Like, it's hard to know for sure, but like you said, it definitely
I mean, what do you think?
Feels real.
Do you think?
I think it depends. I don't know. I feel like there are definitely real, well, quote unquote, real places that you can tune into, like a radio frequency, but it's hard to tell what's just a projection of your mind, or what's delusion, what's truth, what are these entities, what are their intentions. I don't know. The deeper I go into it, the more confused I come out of it, I feel.
Yes, 1000%.
Because, like, especially in these realms, it's like we're going into this place where there's high dimensional beings who are probably a lot more intelligent than us. So I don't know, I feel like I'm like just like a dumb monkey walking around in this place I don't understand. And then I come back to this reality, I'm like, I think I saw this lady, she told me this, she could have been lying, I don't know, maybe it was all in my head, maybe it was real.
Right.
It's hard to say, man. What feeling do you get from this DMT lady? Do you think she was like the archetypical embodiment of DMT, or something else?
I just feel like she's this entity that exists. It's very powerful. It's like a cross between your mom and like your best friend and like your lover, which is weird to combine all those things. But she feels very powerful. Like she feels like she could smack you down. She also is very like flirtatious with you, and then she also felt like my best friend. And so, I'm sorry, what did you ask?
Oh, like what do you, like what do you think that entity is or represents, or what is her intention?
So it seems like with the DMT, it always is trying to teach you something. And I heard that that's the same thing that ayahuasca does, but I didn't experience that on ayahuasca whatsoever. I never experienced any theme entity on ayahuasca. So I was always told it's the same substance. You go to the same place, but ayahuasca world is drastically different than DMT world for me.
Yeah.
How was ayahuasca? Was ayahuasca like, okay, on a substance like a mushroom trip has a certain feel, LSD has a certain feel, DMT has a certain feel, ayahuasca has a certain feel. Like, would you agree with that? Like,
yeah, for sure, definitely. So, different playing fields.
It's really weird. But my ayahuasca, I expected ayahuasca to be like DMT, like, or what a lot of people describe ayahuasca as, you know, a lot of animals and, you know, the nature and snakes and. I went to like this weird digital almost realm, and it felt very apathetic to me. It felt very it was very mean the first night, as you saw the first video, but the other times it just felt like I was flying around this weird place. And yeah, I don't know, if I'm going to be honest with you, I feel like ayahuasca fucked me up for a bit. Like it's made me question pretty much everything in terms of I don't know what to believe, because like if you have all the spiritual people that have like religion and they have, this is what happens when you die, or this is what God is like, there's no spiritual practice that I've seen that can explain what I experienced on ayahuasca. So when I was like still in Peru walking around, I think I was there in between. No, yeah, I stayed in, maybe I was in Bali. So I went to Bali. Yeah, I went to Bali and I was getting a massage. And when some lady was giving like me a massage on my feet, all of a sudden I would like get transported back into ayahuasca world, like in my head. And it would and I'd be like, whoa. And it just would like, I'd have to like do something to distract me so my mind wouldn't go to these like, not really weird. I really don't, the thing is, what I hate the most about it is I have no words to describe what that feeling is, or what yeah, what I experience. I just know I don't really like it, and it feels weird. But I do have to say, since you said you haven't watched the second video was amazing. Like, it was wonderful. I loved it. I felt like.
Sorry, I'm sorry to cut you off, and there is a bit of a delay. So
Okay.
it's yeah. Just before you go into that, can you explain your first experience and just kind of go through the nutshell of
Sure.
the ceremonies that you went through?
Okay.
And like, what was your
so
intention? When was this?
I guess I don't know if it was like April or May of last year, 2019. I went. The bad thing is when I first was going to this retreat, I thought, I'll make some good videos from it. I'll make some content. I really was not in the mood to do ayahuasca because of the whole purging aspect. I've never liked throwing up. I mean, some people, I guess, most people don't like it, but some people really don't. I feel like I've found women don't mind it as much as men, but the idea of throwing up and being hot, like on something, tripping, it was like, that sounds like the worst possible thing that could happen to you.
Yeah.
But I was like, you know what? I need to do this. I've said I was going to do it for years. People keep messaging me. Have you done it yet? Have you done it? Said no. So I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to go do it. Went down to Peru, went to a retreat center that had supposed to do 3 ceremonies. I think I went in, I said I wanted to be a better healer or something. I don't remember what my intention was, but in the back of my mind, it knew that my intention was to make a video. I think because my first experience, it was like, you came here to make a video, and I was just incredibly sick. I was trying to vomit, but I couldn't. So I was just going, like, leaning over my bucket, making that noise, going, like that. And but then I would go like into the bucket, and then like the whole world would come around me, and you're just hearing everyone else like puking, and it's like echoey, and it's pitch black, so you don't see anything. It's like the walls are disappearing, and you just feel like I really don't really know what. Oh, and it kept like shaking me. Like I kept, like I was just like almost convulsing in the room. So I'm like sitting there convulsing, sick. Like I feel terrible. I want to vomit. I can't. And yeah, I was in there for, I guess, 6 or 7 hours. I was like the last person in there. Everyone like would, had these magical experiences. They got up and left. And I was one of the last people in there, and they kept going, "Are you ready to get up?" And I would like try to move, and it was still like just this terrible.
How much did you drink?
I don't remember. And then I wouldn't say that much out of like a cup that's like this. So it was too much. That's all I know.
Yeah, it's too much.
But
yeah. I've been there too.
And I swore, and I was like, I was done. I was ready to leave the retreat and never come back, because I was like, I don't need to do this. I don't see the benefit of it. But luckily, this place that I went to, they had a psychologist. And so I went and talked to the psychologist, and I was like, this is what it told me. Because it told me to delete my YouTube channel, told me to stop making videos. I kind of forgot what else it said. And so I guess I'll go back, and it was telling me to delete my channel. And I was like, and it was like, you're way in over your head. You don't know what you're talking about. Like, you don't know the slightest clue. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to lie. And I thought, for whatever reason, I thought I could lie to it in my head. And so I was like, I'm not going to delete my channel. Or no, at first I said, I'll delete my channel. But in the back of my head, I'm like, there's no way I'm deleting my channel. And
it's like, yeah, sure, I'll delete it. No,
yeah. But I was like, I'll believe it.
Yeah.
But anytime I said that, it was like just shaking me, which it wasn't like physical hands, but I was just like convulsing.
Right.
And then just being really sick, and sorry, I'm not always good with telling my stories without editing.
No, you're right, man.
So okay, I went to the psychologist, and the psychologist was like, "That's bullshit. You can you use your channel to help people. That's just all in your head," and that was really helpful for me to hear. And then I told myself, if everyone else has like a good experience, then I'll do it again. Everyone had a wonderful experience the next night. So I was like, okay, I'll be brave. I'll do it again. Oh, and he even said, he goes, if you have another terrible experience, you can come in here and punch me in the face.
Whoa.
And I was like, oh, that's wow. He's very confident. Yeah. Like, he goes, I've just seen this a lot. People have a really bad first night, and the second night will be better. And so I gave it a second shot, and the second night, it was the most magical thing, one of the most magical things I've ever experienced. Like, I was hanging out in this realm, and it was like, it's weird because I don't know, you probably experienced it where you can feel there's an entity there, but you don't see anything. Like, you feel there's something there with you.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's really weird, and it felt huge. It felt like God. But it would, like, these shapes would come in my vision, and then they would kind of morph into something like very super intricate, like something that my brain couldn't even like come up with. And I'd be like, holy shit, that's beautiful. And then it would explode, and like it just kept exploding, getting more intricate, more beautiful, and and then it would just, dive and just be, it was like, I don't know, it was just the coolest thing I'd ever seen. And I was dumbfounded for hours. I just sat there going, of course there's a God. Like, this is beautiful. Thank you. But I felt, and I was like, I need to ask a question that I can take back to my life. But for hours, I was like, anything I can think of is going to sound so stupid. Like, how do you ask God a question? Like,
right.
Like, what is the meaning of life? Just felt stupid. Like, if I felt like I was in the presence of all knowledge and of everything, and it literally dumbfounded me for hours. And so as it started to and I just was watching this beautiful thing for hours, and it was like it was showing off. And then so towards the end, I was like, I need to ask it something. And I'm like, okay, well, I know I'm not in heaven. Where am I? And it goes, you're in a space outside of time. And then as soon as I heard that, or I kind of had that knowing, I immediately was kind of shown that this world, or this experience that we live, it's like a Nintendo 6, it's like a regular Nintendo game, like Super Mario. Right. And everything that we're experiencing exists in this 8-bit game. Angels, psychedelics, heaven, hell, everything exists in this one game. Like, that's just a level of this one game. There's many other games you can play also in this Nintendo, but that's like an 8-bit Nintendo. There's actually a Nintendo 64, a PlayStation 5. There's much more advanced gaming systems with much more advanced games. And the analogy it gave me was, you're in the living room. Like this world that we're in right now, we're inside this gaming system playing this one game. Where I was during this trip was, I was in the living room. I couldn't really literally see, but I was outside of the gaming systems. So I was another step removed from it. And it basically just said, yeah, you can play all of these games, and you will, and you have, and it's just play. Just play the game. Don't take it so seriously. And I couldn't stop smiling. I think there were some of the things that I can't quite recall right now, but it's in the video. But for days, I just couldn't stop smiling. I was just like, wow, it was so amazing to me that I got to experience that. And that was the only saving grace, because then I went to Arcana, and I had another terrible, terrible night.
What was that like? Similar to the first ceremony, or?
Similar, but it wasn't mean to me. It was just, I felt, so also in the second ayahuasca experience, so as I was going through, this part's cool. So I was starting to get sick again, and I was telling God, or whatever that entity was, I don't want to get sick. I don't want to throw up. And it goes, well, you don't have to. You don't want to. And I was like, okay, awesome. And then 30 minutes went by, and all of a sudden I started dry heaving and going, making all this weird noise. And I thought to myself, well, you lied to me. You said I didn't have to throw up. And it goes, you haven't thrown up, have you? And I was like, oh shit. Well, I don't want to dry heave either. And it goes, okay, you don't have to dry heave either. And it said, basically, I could control whatever I wanted to control. And any experience that I wanted to have, all I had to do was ask, be specific. And so I left the second ceremony going, oh, I don't have to get sick. I can have this amazing experience where I can hang out with God. It's awesome. So, okay, so I need one other part to... So also in the first retreat that I went to, there was a girl that her first experience, she said that her husband was going to die in a car wreck in 10 years.
Oh,
and she cried and cried.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so she was like crying about it, and then we had a group share every day, and she said, I was told my husband's going to die in 10 years. There's nothing I can do about it. Just enjoy my time with him. And they were like, all the shamans were like, oh, that's probably just your imagination. Don't take it seriously. It'll probably be better the next night. The next night she goes, it goes, no, your husband's really going to die in 10 years. I think it's going to be at a car wreck or something. And then it says also your dad raped you when you were 4.
Whoa.
I was like, what?
Fucking hell.
And then so she spent the next day crying.
Yeah.
And the group share, she was crying again. And they were like, okay, that's probably just your fears or whatever. Don't take it seriously. Third ceremony, she goes, no, your husband's really going to die. Your father raped you when you were 4, and showed her a scene from like that happening.
Whoa.
And it like really messed with her. And then so she was going to see her parents the week after the retreat, and she was going to confront her parents because she felt it was very healing and helpful, because she had always felt really weird around her parents, but she didn't know why. And apparently the ayahuasca told her that, yeah, your dad did this to you, and your mom knew about it and didn't stop him. So that's why you have like a weird relationship with your parents, because this whole thing. So she was going to go see her family the week after the retreat. She goes to see them and confronts them. She confronts them, and they deny it. They say that never happened. We could have never done that to you. And then she believes them. And so I hear through a friend before my first ceremony at Arcana, my friend texts me and says, so-and-so confronted her parents. Her parents denied it. She believes them. And so I was like, okay, like if we can't, why would it do that? Like, why would this medicine do this? And so I went into my first ceremony at Arcana going, I think this is just a drug trip. Like, I don't think there's anything magical or spiritual about this. And that probably magnified it, or maybe it is my fear or whatever. But again, I did the same thing where thought I had to go to the restroom, and I walked into the restroom and I was like, okay, well, I don't want to throw up. And then I got sick to my stomach, and I was like, hey, I don't want to throw up. You said if I don't want to throw up, like I don't have to. And then I started throwing up. And then the walls, like, how it kind of, well, for me, it gets very vibratey, like everything starts vibrating, and it was like I could just feel it like increasing. And I was like, okay, this is cool. Like, dial it back. You don't need to do this. And it just gets stronger and stronger. And it just wasn't listening to anything I was saying. And I ended up just hanging out in the little bathroom for 3 hours, just like laying on the ground, just like without my shirt, just like scratching myself and being like rubbing my face and just being like, just have to wait this out. Just have to wait this out. And I was like rocking. And I was acting like a lunatic.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And yeah, eventually they came and got me and made me come out. And so I went and laid down. And I'm sorry, I'm going to blank on her name right now. The shaman? The same shaman. I had the same one as you.
Justina?
Yeah. So she came and like blew smoke on me. I went back and sat down, and then she was singing her Icaros, and then she just started like vomiting. It was very surreal.
Whoa.
I was like, I didn't want to do it again, but then there was all these people there, and this girl that I thought was cute, and she was doing it, and I was like, why? I can't be the guy that wusses out. So I did it, but I kept like trying to take less, and I don't know. It was like, it's really, if you go by the end of my videos, I basically said that maybe it was, okay, so you have to do the whole diet where you have to like not do certain things, right?
Yeah.
And I think you smoked weed too soon, so you had to like take a break or whatever. You had to.
Yeah, they gave me a purgative. Yeah. They're like, you need to drink this and throw your guts up. I was like, okay, cool, thanks.
Yeah. So before I went on the retreat, I don't like mosquitoes, so I guess you're going to hear them. I'm just very stubborn.
Yeah.
So they were like, bring organic mosquito spray, and I was like, no, I'm not bringing organic. I want something that works. And so I brought like the heavy duty stuff. And so by the end of the retreat, I thought, well, maybe that's what's giving me these bad trips. Maybe it's because I'm rubbing this literal like poison on myself, and maybe that's like seeping in and like counteracting with it. Oh, because I did have I had a vision. another lady next to me was sharing her story, and she said during her ayahuasca experience, she saw herself washing her hair. She saw a piece of soap come off of her head, go down the drain, a fish eat that, and then a fisherman catch that fish, serve that fish to his family, and then his little daughter gets sick.
Oh.
And so she said that and made me go, okay, maybe is there anything in my life that I'm doing that? And I'm like, yeah, I'm not being really like nature conscious by using these DEET. They're DEET wipes. You're not supposed to use DEET. The jungle doesn't like DEET. And then so I stopped using the DEET wipes. And by the last day I was there, I had a normal experience. Like I had one of those experiences where I just saw these people like flashing by, and then I saw like a boat in a river, like Japanese boats in a river with like all this like trash hitting them. And it was very, it's much more earthy and much more normal. And it was this weird dark, because I kept going to this dark realm that, I just didn't like.
Yeah.
How was it?
Pardon?
How are yours?
Oh, yeah.
You're still going to make videos about it, but like...
Yeah, it was, I guess a mixture of divine and awesome and also terrifying as well. So
you did have a terrifying one?
Yeah,
or was it...
definitely. Because I don't know if you know, but like 3 years ago, I had like a traumatic ayahuasca experience and I thought I was never going to return. And I guess in that moment, I thought, you know what? Maybe this is for the good. I'm just integrating. Maybe I just leave the retreat a bit scarred, but this is going to be good for me overall. And I was kind of confused whether or not it just traumatized me and just did damage, or if it actually did help me and I'm just trying to justify it in my mind. So I was going through that whole trip. And I got invited to go to Arcana just a month or two ago.
Yeah.
And then I thought, you know what? I think I'm ready to rekindle my relationship with ayahuasca. Let's just see how it goes. And I just took it really slow. So the first ceremony was very mild, had like a quarter cup. But then the next ceremony, dude, that's when I went to a very similar space from the one 3 years ago. Like that. Oh. It was like an evil DMT realm, abyss monster trying to consume me, take me to the dark. Like, it kind of felt like that, just really evil and dark. And it wasn't just... Because I know people have like challenging trips where they, maybe you face your trauma or a memory that happened, you got to reconcile or whatever, and it's like, that's cool to surrender, let it consume you, let go. But then there are other times where you're facing something really serious, where I'm like, fuck, I don't know about this. Should I let go and surrender to this thing, or is this just going to consume me? Is this just going to take me to the dark side? And then people can be like, oh well, darkness and light is all a projection of your mind. But then I start to think like, but what about in the physical dimension? Like if I'm in a dark alleyway and someone's trying to mug me, do I just surrender to that experience and let someone mug me? Or do I fight back? So I'm just trying to think, like, if there is extreme situations like that in this physical dimension, why couldn't there be that situation in the spiritual dimension? So then I'm just like going through my head like, fuck, I don't know, I can't surrender to this thing. And everyone's telling me like, trust the medicine, trust the process, trust yourself. And I'm like, but I don't know, man. It was just that existential terror that flooded my body. It was just so overwhelming, man. It was too much. And the visuals get so much where you can't even close your eyes because there's just no break. It doesn't matter whether you're opening or closing your eyes. So it's like the whole time I'm like fighting it and trying to stay in this human dimension. I remember going to the bathroom, which is terrifying. Because I always think like...
Oh, I loved it in there.
Oh, did you? I was the opposite.
Just having light. I needed the light.
Did you? I didn't like it because maybe I was just too sensitive at that moment. And then I hear stories about brujos, like bad shamans, fucking with people. And so outside the Maloka, I just felt unprotected. And I remember going to the bathroom to take a shit. And then the whole room was deconstructing in front of me. And I'm like, oh, fuck, I'm on like a time limit, dude. If I stay here for too long, I don't know if I'm going to get out. Yeah. But, I went back to the Maloka, I asked for lemon juice. And I was just basically going through like this spiritual warfare in my mind of just trying to transmute these extreme negative experiences to positive and basically just surviving. But I did go through actually a really interesting purge where I was like, my grandma got invoked, and like she died 12 years ago, and I never grieved for her. And then that started coming up, and then this deep like family karma shit, and just going through that. And then, yeah, listen, I made it at the end, but what was good about this experience versus the one 3 years ago was that I had my wits about me. So yes, it was unfathomable in terms of how terrifying it was and how shit it felt, but I still had my wits. Whereas 3 years ago, I lost my mind. So you're going through hell, like, and you're losing your mind, so you can't really do anything. Whereas this time, it's like I was freaking out internally, but outside, I was very conscious of like sitting up straight the whole time, deep breathing, doing mantras, remembering my intention, holding my flashlight just to hold something physical to anchor me. Just shit like that, you know what I mean? Just thinking of puppies and unicorns and rainbows and anything that would kind of put me at ease. And I guess it worked, because at the end I handled it pretty well. Usually that kind of experience would leave me so traumatized, but this time I was like, oh, I actually made it. Not that I want to do that ever again, because it was so fucking terrifying, but at the same time, I don't know, maybe I had more tools in my belt, but I don't want to be cocky either, because I also know that hell is a bottomless pit. So no matter how dark of an experience you have, it can always get so much worse. So you don't want to have that attitude of like, oh, I can handle this now, because then the next ceremony could be like 10 times worse, and you don't think it's possible until it happens to you. But yeah, you know, that was quite terrifying. But like I said,
how many did you do?
The first week I did 4 ceremonies. Second week I did 2. Wow. But I took it like very, very, out of the 7 or 6 ceremonies that I did, I think maybe 2 of them were like quite intense. The rest of them were very mild, but I took like very, very low doses. So yeah, I don't know. I find that I get like more sensitive to this stuff the more I do it, because even that trip that I was just explaining to you, that was like half a cup, which is supposed to be like, I wouldn't say it's a low dose, but it's definitely not a big dose. So it's just weird how that happens.
By the end, I was taking like the smallest. I was just like, every time I was like lower, less. So so it's much more manageable.
Yes, and this is definitely it's a profound transformative tool, and I've seen mixed reactions from it. Like I've seen a lot of people go through these really profound transformations, but then I also hear like some horror stories. People leave a bit more fucked up than what they came in there for. What do you think that's about? Like, what are your thoughts on, the ayahuasca spirit or,
Yeah, so I'm still trying to figure that out, to be honest with you. Like there was a couple of dudes there that were there for like PTSD, and they swore up and down how amazing it was and how it's helped them, and they can finally sleep without having nightmares. And even one guy who was there for 3 weeks, like he did 2 weeks at Arcana and then like another week at the Sacred Valley one. And the whole time I was there, his second week, he was having a terrible, like he was puking his brains out, had nothing mystical. And every time during the group share, he was just like, I don't like this. This is like not good for me. I want to go home. And they were just like, trust the process. And then I thought, like I rode with him to the airport, and he sounded like, he was done. Like he was gonna, do his commitment and do his another retreat. And I heard later that he had a magical third week. And I heard someone say, like, ayahuasca knows how long you're going to take it, and it'll put you on this journey. So if you're just going to be there for one night, you're going to have what you need. But if it knows you're going to have 10 ceremonies, 12 ceremonies, it's going to take you on this journey. And by the 11th, 12th ceremony, it's going to make sense.
I've found similar things like that. Like depending on how long you stay at a retreat for, ayahuasca will kind of narrate this story in a particular way. Like if it said like, if you're staying there for 6 ceremonies, your experiences are probably going to be a little bit more spread out versus if you just go there for the one. It might be a little bit more intense and give you the big bang experience. I don't know.
Right.
But a lot of I've heard this from a lot of people, which I found interesting.
So that's the only thing that keeps me thinking that there's something to it. For me, like it's going to be a while until I take it again, just because it was so terrible the few times that I did take it. Like it just, And I still flash, like, how long ago was that? Like, close to almost a year now. And I still feel like occasionally my psyche will go to that weird place going, you don't know anything. Like this, it's just, and it just weirds me out. And I'm like, I don't like it. Sometimes I wish I could just go back to being a normal human and believe whatever everybody else believes,
Tell me
like,
about that.
Not having these other things that I've seen in my head,
Yeah, so sometimes it just takes a long time to just fully process and integrate. Because even like that ayahuasca experience that I told you 3 years ago, it took me, 3 years, it was a long time for me to like really process it to the point where I don't feel like I have, PTSD from it. That being said, I remember that ceremony, the one I had a few months ago was, I guess it showed me that I still have some ties, like some PTSD ties, like I'm still traumatized from that night a little bit. Because I remember some other dude was like really freaking out, and he was having that trip, like that sort of trip where you think you're just going to be crazy forever, and maybe the best thing to do is just to end your life, basically, like one of those trips. And it's like, just being there was like, fuck, I just felt so bad for the guy because I know what that feels like. And sometimes it doesn't matter what people tell you, you're like, I don't know. It's hard to believe.
Yeah.
But
I definitely was there.
Yeah, it could be just a processing thing. So just taking a long time.
What I'm not sold on with any of it is the need to vomit. Like because I've had such amazing, wonderful experiences without having to vomit. And it's like, it just seems like with ayahuasca, it's just this one little group in the world that thinks, no, healing goes with vomiting. And I'm like, well, maybe it's poison. Maybe like that's I can't surrender to that part of it. So maybe if
maybe it depends.
You cool
on
with that aspect?
The vomiting. Oh, I wouldn't say I'm cool with it, but like,
do you feel, because everyone would say like when you throw up, oh, you're gonna feel amazing, and I didn't. Like, I never felt amazing. I felt my stomach still hurt for days.
I would say most times I actually do feel good after vomiting, but sometimes there are certain ceremonies where I don't have quite enough, and I'm sort of like in this limbo state where you're like dry heaving and you just feel ill the whole night. So I've had those for sure. And that's what I've learned, that sometimes if you take too little, that might not be good, because you're just like, you're just about to hit that peak, but you're not quite there. So you're just stuck in this like, I feel like shit. So
that's me. Yeah. And that's what people have comments. They're like, the fact that you always were resisting it so much is the reason you had such a bad experience. Like, you have to surrender to it. And I was just, I don't know. I was good at surrendering to DMT and to other substances. I think maybe because I was slightly younger, but now it's like, I don't know, there was just that fear that just hits you. We're just like, no.
Yeah, it's like that skepticism, because I feel the same way. Even now, I sometimes I find it really hard to completely trust and let go, and I'm always like questioning it. But of course, that just makes it worse on yourself. But fuck, I can't help it. I don't know. Maybe I should just be more trusting.
Did you do the 5-MeO?
I did. I didn't think I was going to do it. I just watched a whole bunch of people do it the first week. And then Jose's like, you want to do it? I'm like, nah, I'm good. And then the second week passed. The second group, they all did it. I watched them all. I even recorded some people. Like, they allowed me to document their experience, which was very nice. And then Jose asked me again. I was like, yeah, you going to do it? I was like, nah. And then the last day, this is like the day before everyone left, after doing like San Pedro, Wachuma, the mescaline-containing cactus, for those who don't know. And then they did they just set up a private ceremony just for me to do this thing. And Jose is like, you're doing this, trust me. I know you better than you know yourself. This is going to be the cherry on top. And because I'm like always freaking out, like, but what happened if I'm like that guy who just ends up screaming his lungs out and has a psychotic break? I'm like, I'm cool. I've had those trips. I don't want to go down there. I'm good. But the way he explained it was just everything that I've been through. He said, like, if you've been through the worst trips from ayahuasca, then you can handle 5-MeO. Not saying that it's less potent, but there's something about the dark realms of ayahuasca, which feels a lot more sinister versus, you know, a bad trip on 5-MeO. But then I could just be speaking out of my ass because I've never had a bad trip on 5-MeO. But that being said, I actually had my outside reaction of 5-MeO was just, I was just sitting there, closed my eyes, breathing just peacefully, man. I just merged with God and kind of went through that place. This is how I interpret it anyway. I went back to that place where we come from and where we're going. Call it death. Well, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. But
yeah,
I guess I was carrying a burden of that. I don't know, just grief and it's not so much death that gives me terror. It's more the process of dying and my physical meat vehicle breaking down and having to go through all my loved ones dying and just shit like that. You know, that's always something that, and I mean, yeah, you can reconcile this by just doing the classic non-duality, like, oh yes, but for death you need life and blah 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 blah. But that visceral feeling of people dying still sucked to me, and that was like a burden I was carrying. So this experience actually just melted all that away, and it's like, it's all good, man. Like, if this is where you go when you die, this is pretty good. But I don't know. Is that really God that I went through, or was it God that I merged with, or was it just an experience that my mind interpreted? I don't know. But it felt really, really, really real, to the point where I came out of it and I was just like bawling my eyes out from gratitude just to be here in this human plane. And yeah, I guess a way I would describe it was, it was like a cosmic paradise, a brief moment of eternity in cosmic paradise. That would be the way I'd sum it up. So it's fucking, it was really profound, man. Yeah, I was actually really happy that I did it. So yeah, did you do it?
Yeah, sounds very my experience as well. Yeah,
oh, really?
I talk about it in my videos. But what reminded me is so the reason I got psychedelics in the first place was because I read the book DMT The Spirit Molecule, where they injected people with it, and that book got me into it because they said DMT was the closest you can come to having a near-death experience without dying, because I've always been fascinated with near-death experiences, because I have the same thing, like what happens when you die. I don't want to go through this dying process, and I just want some reassurance. So that's to answer your original question about what got me into it. It was mostly that book, and that so I was like, I have to try it. So but with 5-MeO, same thing. Like it comes on incredibly strong. So white, but like these shapes, and then I felt like I described it as being inside of God. I said the same thing, and it was like an like an orgasm having an orgasm, like watching other people have orgasms. It was like this whole, it was like MDMA on steroids. It was just like the best feeling I ever felt in my entire body. And then I went back and forth between crying and laughing. Like I would just start just laughing so much, and just like go that laugh, you go like that, where you just start laughing. Everyone in the room started laughing because I was laughing. And then I was so like relieved, because the couple of before I had really experienced ayahuasca, and I was thinking, the world hates me. And so it was like almost like a gentle reminder of, no, you were loved, and this is what love is, and this is about. And that I would be laughing, and then I would be so happy that I would be crying, and just went back and forth between those two things. And it was amazing. Afterwards, I was just like, had the same sort of thing where I was just like, I'm so lucky to be here. I'm so lucky to be around these people, and everyone was beautiful to me. Like I saw the beauty in everyone, and I was just like, I have to hug all of you. Like it was magical. And again, I couldn't, like, but the leading up to that week, I had a lot of bad ceremonies. And so I was just kind of like in this bubble of despair, and it took me out of that and made me see the beauty and the love and the light. And I was like, Jose hooked me up with it too, because he saw I was going. He didn't like pay for me to go. Well, he let me go to the retreat if I just made videos about it. So I did. And then, but I think they charged $250 for it, and I would easily spend $1,000 on this. Like that was the greatest thing I think that I've ever experienced.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be, I was like, I'm gonna go get some toads and start my own. Like, everyone needs to experience this.
I'm gonna get my own toads, my toad farm.
Yeah.
Dude. From everyone at the retreat, 99% of them said that the 5-MeO experience was their most profound trip of the whole retreat.
Yeah.
So I found that really interesting. I guess I was holding fear that I would leave too ungrounded. That was my big thing. I didn't want to I don't know, because I have heard from some experiences of how people have this 5-MeO DMT experience, and then they come back to this reality. They're like, no, I don't want to come back here. I want to stay there, and then they kind of leave unanchored a bit. That did not happen to me, thank goodness. I actually had the opposite effect. I went more grounded to this reality, because as amazing as that reality was, at the same time, it's like, yeah, but I'm going to go there when I die, if that's the truth, right? So I might as well just... I came to this human plane for a reason. There's a purpose why I'm here. Let's get some shit done, sort of thing. And I was just grateful to be, again, a human again. I remember seeing Jose's face made of organic matter. I was like, oh, thank goodness I'm back here again. Because it's so hard to explain that realm. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Because it's like...
No words.
I've had crazy experiences that you could also say there are no words for, with ayahuasca, mushrooms, you name it. But there are still words and concepts where you can sort of paint a picture, at least metaphorically, whereas 5-MeO was... It's like you just shot past all the dimensions and straight to source. It's like so beyond anything that I've ever experienced.
Yeah.
There really are...
1,000%. Yeah.
There is no freaking word, and I came back. Yeah, one of my first words was like, I came back into consciousness. I was like, I understand. And just like crying and shit.
Yeah.
Jose's like, I told you, man. I'm like, thank you for making me do this. Yeah, actually, he made me do some rape just before the experience, because it grounds you. For those listening, rape is a, how would you describe it, a shamanic snuff with tobacco ash?
Yeah. Just a snorting of ash, I
yeah
guess.
Pretty much. And it sounds
tobacco. It's just straight tobacco. Yeah, I think it's just ground up tobacco, and they shot it up your nose. Yeah, with a cylindrical tube, or like it was bamboo or something.
Yeah. And sometimes they'll put different plants in there, like different mixtures. But and it sounds unpleasant, and I guess it is for most people. But I guess I'm one of the weirdos that I like it, just because I leave. I don't know, it just grounds me. I like it, especially going to an experience like that. So, but yeah, man, 5-MeO was. I would have to say it was the most profound experience of my life, at least experientially. I don't know. I need more time to pass, ask me in a few years' time which one was the most practical experience of my life. But in terms of like just the holy shit moment, yeah, man, 5-MeO takes the cake. And I can see why people are so crazy about it, man. They love it. Yeah. People are like, you haven't done a psychedelic experience until you've smoked 5-MeO. You have like these purists. Smoke 5-MeO and you will know that you are God. I didn't come with that interpretation. I definitely merged, what felt like I merged with God consciousness, and I was one with everything, literally. But I didn't come back to Earth going like, oh, that means I'm God. It's like, no, well, I'm still a human being really living in this relative plane. I'm just a fractal of that, and I can connect to that. Like, it's in me, but I'm not it. I still came with that sort of realization.
Yeah, I definitely felt separate from it, or like just a part of it, like a drop of it. I guess a drop of God is how some people describe it, and I guess that's how I would describe it. What do you think is like the point of all this? I know you say you come here to do work or whatever. What's the point of being a human?
Earth,
in your eyes? Yeah.
Just to be human. I think everyone has their own unique purpose. It doesn't have to be anything special, like, save the world. Some people could just be, I don't know, be a gardener or be a fucking awesome plumber, or I don't know. It's all dependent on you, but I do believe that we are here for a purpose, a role to play, and here to, I guess just live our own purpose, but at the same time serve humanity in the best way that we can. That's just the way I interpret it. And when I live life this way, it definitely becomes smoother and easier to navigate, and not trying to it's like Alan Watts talks about, like, you know, you chop wood and you fetch water, and then after enlightenment, you're still doing the same shit. You're chopping wood, fetching water. It's like,
yeah.
So I try not to like overthink. But what's like the grander purpose of this whole thing? What's going on behind the scenes? I have no idea, dude. I go through my theories and I have certain experiences, but I have to realize the limitations of my human mind, and there are just certain realities that I can't see past, you know? Maybe I can like tap into, but I don't know. I'm still a human in this physical dimension, so I don't have that overseeing eye. Like, let's say, I don't know, if let's say entities exist, and you're like a fourth or fifth or sixth dimensional being, for sure you're going to have a grander perspective of what's going on in this reality than what we have, because we're in it. So yeah, to answer your question, Alan, I have no idea. I don't know.
See, and that's why I like people like you. So many people are they don't like saying I don't know. That's what I've found. I think the spiritual people that are too spiritual, they have to have an answer for everything. I guess that was my problem with religion, is that people won't go, you know what, I have no idea, because I think a lot of people don't have, you know. I think it's totally cool to not have an idea.
No.
Or have an idea. You should have an idea, but you shouldn't. I don't like it when people say, I guess, that they know something, because I've been proven over and over again that I don't know. Oh, and that's what the first ayahuasca retreat, the first ayahuasca ceremony taught me. It's like, no, you don't know, and you need to be okay with that. So
yeah, I share the same frustration with spiritual gurus who claim to know. Like they might present themselves in a way that like, oh, I'm just figuring this out, I don't know, but clearly by the way they speak, they're so fucking confident in their conviction. It's like, but how do you really know? How can you be that sure of yourself? You know,
right.
Even the thing like about the 5-MeO DMT and being God or whatever, there was quite a popular spiritual guru who would literally say, get 5-MeO DMT, smoke it, and you will see for sure that you are God. So he's basically saying like, come back to me when you agree with what I'm saying.
Right.
You know? And I did. I smoked 5-MeO DMT. I didn't come up with that conclusion. Does that mean I'm wrong? Or maybe I'm just misinterpreting it? I don't know. I don't know, man.
I saw there was a cool video that I forgot. I think his initials are JK, but it's like he's an Indian guru that's, you know, now passed. And I was watching a video, and it's like someone asked him, how do you know if you're enlightened? And they go, if someone says they're enlightened, they are not. Yeah. And I'm like, I like you. Yeah, exactly. That's the way I feel too. Exactly,
man. And a lot of, you know, I hate to say this, but a lot of spiritual gurus, they seem like they're enlightened, like they've got it all figured out. But then how many times have you heard of the story play out of they end up being like sexual predators or just some crazy, dark, psychopathic thing because they just repressed all this shit from their psyche and pretending that they're, I don't know, a holy man walking among us.
Right.
I don't know. So I think it's really dangerous to just be, well, obviously it's dangerous to be ignorant, but to just believe in your own bullshit to the point where you're just repressing all your shadow, it can be really dangerous, man. And I've seen it play out in very ugly ways. So yeah, I'm also very weary about quote unquote spiritual gurus or spiritual teachers. So I like the kind of approach of just, I don't know, just chronicling what you're going through.
Yeah, exactly. Just being honest and
exactly.
Yeah. That's why I was drawn to you. Well, like I told you, I started watching your channel when you had like about 10,000 subscribers, and I was always like, oh shit, like if this guy can do it, I can do it. And so I started making videos because of you and PsychedSubstance.
Oh, it's
and awesome. Yeah. So because you came across very normal and just real. And but what was I going to say? I was going to say, but I liked that you went through a phase where you were like, I'm done with psychedelics. People that are too into psychedelics are like crazy. Like you went more like a spiritual route, and I was just like, oh, I get that too. Like you can't really get into, like if you get too much into, I guess that's my fear with my own channel. That's, if I'm just going to be honest, like I didn't want to get stuck doing psychedelics all the time, because I don't think that's healthy. Like I think they're good in small doses for certain things, but when it becomes a thing that you have to do all the time, it seems dangerous.
Yeah. We need to develop more foresight, because I think when we first get into anything, not just psychedelics, I think it's very normal for humans to get really overly excited about something. And it's like, no, this is the thing that I believe. and then people get really attached to it.
Yeah.
And, you know, some people, like, you know, like myself, yourself probably, who, if something gets proven wrong, or, I don't know, maybe an extra question mark pops up, you'd be like, oh, hang on a sec, maybe this wasn't exactly how I thought it was going to be. But some people really do cling on to that forever. And I think it's good to just try to fast forward, like, for anyone that you're listening to, even myself, like, just try to picture, where is this person going to end up in 10, 20, 30 years? Because it's easy to pretend like you've got it all figured out right now. But what happens if your philosophy is taking you down a really dark path, but you just don't know it yet? And that happens all the time. Like, it's no real surprise.
And with everything.
Yeah, with everything, exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. I think it's a weird realm. I don't think we know anything about psychedelics or what they are. They still amaze me. Like, I'm still so interested in just what they are, what they have to offer. And I think this is just the beginning of whatever this thing is. You know, we're just rediscovering psychedelics, and I think we need to be vigilant and not repeat the mistakes of the 60s era, of when hippies were just running wild. Maybe that needed to happen, I'm sure, but we don't want to repeat that, because a lot of people took acid and went to psychosis, and, you know, probably went to a mental institution as well. So there's always that possibility.
And I, at the beginning, because, you know, there's certain people you can talk to and they're like, oh, that's just all fear mongering. They're all good for you. But even when you go do ayahuasca, they say, like, do you have any mental illness? Well, in my group, do 5-MeO if you have mental illness in your, in your family. There is some of that, and if you talk to anybody who's like really into psychedelics, they'll eventually, if you say, do you know of anybody who kind of went too far, and they'll be like, yeah, I know somebody. Like, I don't think so. I think that does need to be said from time to time, and I guess I worry about that for myself. But because, like, you have those trips where you were like, yeah, I'm fucked, like, this is my life now. I think that happened the first time on LSD with me, and I was like, yeah, this is, I didn't remember what life was like before the trip. And I thought this was like forever. But my friend told me in the trip, he's like, you might feel, right before the trip, he said, you might feel like you've gone crazy. Just know that's normal, and just, it'll go away. Just keep telling yourself it'll go away. And it did. And then, you know, you probably had trips like me where in the middle of the trip, you're swearing you'll never do it again. Just please, praying to God, like, just make me normal again. I swear I'll never do it again. But
exactly, you're just tapping it. Yeah, of course, you're tapping out, and the psychedelic gods are just shoving your face under the water, and you're trying to catch some fresh air, and it's just not letting go. It's like, please, I'll never do this again. And then deep down, you're like, you're going to do this again. Maybe not through it, but definitely afterwards. It's just so easy. It's so funny how easy we can forget about how heavy these experiences are. Like, once you come back to reality, it's like, oh, like, yeah, it was crazy, but it's sort of like a faded dream. And then you go back, you have another crazy experience. It's like, oh, wait, yeah, that's right. This can be quite serious stuff. So
what's your most, like, beneficial, or what like helped you the most, would you say,
in terms of like ayahuasca or psychedelics and
just psychedelic in general? Like, is there anything that, because I know that we're talking about the scary parts, but there's also some beautiful parts to it. Of course,
it changed my life in certain. I think even with the dark parts, I don't just talk about it just to scare people. I think maybe just naturally I find the darkness so interesting just to talk about and expand upon. So those listening at home, I'm not trying to fearmonger and just talking. Maybe it's even like the pendulum swing in the other direction of, like, you know, when I first started this channel, it was 99% of what I talked about was all the positive aspects of psychedelics. So maybe I just needed to kind of balance it out. But in terms of most beneficial, there's a few, man, that I would say either my first San Pedro experience, just because of how grounded it was compared to other psychedelics. Like, it was like a old grandfather figure giving me direction on life and teaching me about the beauty of life and duality, and that's where I got the idea to start a blog and a YouTube channel. So that's actually where it started, and I've had mushroom experiences which have been really profound and healing, kind of just clearing trauma and stuff. But yeah, I would say the first time I took, or at least the first 2 weeks I spent in Peru, where I did ayahuasca and San Pedro, just that whole experience. And it wasn't even just psychedelics in and of themselves. I would say it was the whole journey of going to Peru, going overseas and meeting this like-minded people and being in a community and having this shamanic experience and learning about these different cultures and being by myself and spending time in nature and eating healthy. So it was a combination of all these things. It's not just about taking the medicine, and I do find that the more seriously I take the preparation, the easier the experiences tend to be. So, because, you have the obvious ones, like, not eating, let's say, like red meat, sugar, oils, processed shit, whatever. But then there's also like mental fasts. Like, what are you watching? Are you watching like the news, like before you go into it? Or are you playing like, like horror video games, like Resident Evil 2 or something? And it's an awesome game, but like, do you really want to feel that you really want to fill your head with that just before you step into a interdimensional experience? I don't know. I guess it's up to you, but I think it's really important to just have a mental fast and really be cautious of what you're watching, what you're listening to, who you're hanging out with, things like this. So the more seriously I take these practices in my everyday life, the much easier psychedelic experiences tend to be. So it's sort of like building a foundation of your mind. Because I noticed that when I had the most terrifying trips in the past was because I was too premature, maybe, like not really ready for those type of experiences, and maybe I was too focused on the spiritual side of things and not enough in the physical, when the physical is an expression of the all anyway. So we should take this seriously. And just little things, like, for example, and I talk about this a lot, but like cleaning your room, actually being consistent and having a healthy diet, exercising every day, not watching news and stuff, and just things like that I found really important. But man, most of my psychedelic experiences have been actually quite positive. It's just the the few negative ones really stand out because they're just like, whoa, what the fuck. But they're like I said, they're the most interesting. It's like, name one of the greatest movies of all time without fucked up dark conflict. There is none. So.
You have to have it. Exactly.
And that's when I realized, like, why am I having these dark experiences every once in a while? And I think, like, deep down, because I'm a natural storyteller, or at least I want to be. So maybe deep down I want to have these crazy experiences just so I have a crazy story to tell. So again, I'm not chasing these experiences, but they do come less and less, so that's good. I don't know. Do you find that some people can really have just 100% positive experiences for the rest of their life, no matter what they do? Do you think some people are really just built for that? Or do you think there is always a line that you can cross? And no matter how positive you are, you just have to have one trip that sets you off.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know that many people that have done kind of as much as I have. My friend that I'm staying with, his girlfriend is like a very happy person. And so every time she does mushrooms, it's like she is just a giggle fest and just loves it. And I think I even asked her if she's ever had a bad experience, and she's like, no. And that's beautiful. And that's awesome. But when I first got into psychedelics, I was, when you first get into it, you can't shut up about it. Or at least I couldn't. No, everybody, you got to try this. It's amazing. And I was talking to some guy at my work at the time, and he goes, yeah, psychedelics are awesome. But he goes, once you start having bad trips, you'll start having more of them. And then I was like, I'm never going to have a bad trip. And then now that I've had a few, like I had a bad one on LSD, and I was like, okay, I haven't touched it since. Like it was, granted, I mixed with like alcohol and stuff that I also swore I would never do. Because when I first was starting off, I was like, okay, every substance is this like special thing, and you treat it with respect, and you do it in a certain situation. But the more you do something, the easier it gets to abuse it or not use it properly. And that's what I did one night. I was drinking, and I just so happened to have a couple tabs on me, and I was just like, oh shit, I'll do that. And
fuck it.
It was a terrible, terrible, terrible night. So
Yeah, it's interesting how you say that about your friend who's like, you know, always had positive trips. I had a comment like that actually about a year ago. This lady saying that, oh, I'm just too positive. I've never had a bad trip. I've had hundreds of psychedelic experiences and not once have I had a negative one. And then maybe 6 months later, I got a message, and still to this day, severely traumatized, like hardcore PTSD, like the worst, one of the most unimaginable, horrific trips that you could think of, to the point where still struggling with it. Like it fucking hit her so hard, and maybe she might not ever trip on psychedelics again. So
what was the substance?
I don't even know. I think it was DMT or something. But yeah,
that's the thing.
It can happen.
Like a trip is it's so intense.
Yeah, you don't know what's like lurking in your subconscious. And I think like for myself, for example, like looking back, of course, with hindsight, it makes sense why at the beginning I would have had more frequent bad trips. It was just like growing up as a kid, I guess. I had just a really unhealthy foundation. I had a lot of trauma and dealing with like depression and anxiety and kind of into fucked up, I don't know, just like everything that I listened to the music, to the movies, to TV shows was all like fucked up shit. So of course I'm going to have all this stuff lurking around in my subconscious. So it all depends on your foundation. That's why it's so important.
Yeah, I agree. So when I first was getting into psychedelics, I think the LSD was the first one I ever tried. And I was scared to try it because my weed experiences were bad and I had depression. And I was like, LSD just sounds like it's not a good thing if you have depression. But I ended up having one of the most magical experiences. And I kept getting this feeling over and over again. It's like, you just need to know that you're loved. And I was like, whoa, hey, psychedelics are amazing if that's going to tell me I'm loved. But then, then it turns on you later.
Then it turns on you. Maybe it's all for the greater good. I don't know.
It is.
LSD is a weird one. I've only done that one like a couple times. Yeah. What are your what
was it?
The one that I had was when did I had my first tested 100% LSD trip was actually with Adam from PsychedSubstance, which was really interesting. But I find it weird. It's just like getting recorded. That was the first time I've ever been recorded.
Oh shit! I think I actually watched that. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the first trip that I've ever been recorded. So it was like really weird, and I was dealing with a lot. Like I guess it's still a little bit now, but definitely more back then. Just social anxiety and just self-cautious. And when you're on psychedelics, it amplifies all that kind of stuff. So as soon as the cameras were off, that's when it went a lot better. But it was a lot more powerful than what I gave it credit for sure. Yeah, it's like, I don't know, LSD is weird because it sort of gives me the closest psychedelic that I can compare it to, even though they're all their own unique thing, but I would say San Pedro would be the closest one. Some people even consider San Pedro to be nature's LSD, which I find interesting. And they last for pretty much the same duration, 8 to 12 hours, so...
I've never tried San Pedro. How do you describe a trip? Because like with me, LSD is very neon. Like if I close my eyes, it's a lot of like neon visuals. It's very just neon. It's very colorful, but it's like almost like in Vegas, like there's tons of just bright lights.
Like a futuristic sci-fi, cyberpunky, simulated sort of virtual reality experience. Yeah, I kind of have the same experience. Because with mushrooms, it's more, and I hate to use the word, but this feels more natural. I'm more connected with just Mother Earth and primal, visceral feelings and kind of just more animalistic, that kind of stuff. Like sometimes, even with mushrooms, I don't know if you've ever had it just wandering out in nature before, but I've had experiences where, like heavy experiences where the mushroom, or I don't know how do I explain this? It's like, I'm walking through nature, but it's more like Mother Nature walking through herself, but using me as a conduit. So it's like I'm animated Earth. Yeah, it's like I've had experiences where I'm literally climbing waterfall cliffs, like tripping on mushrooms, but it was like... And it sounds crazy when you hear about this, but it actually did the opposite effect of when I'm actually being active and, you know, climbing trees, walking through rocks, swimming through the water, swimming underwater, all that kind of stuff. I felt more present, and I found the trip way easier to handle versus if I just sit still and meditate. That's when it would, the visuals will start to have a chance to kick in more. Whereas if I'm just walking in nature, I just feel like, I don't know, like a hunter or something, like a caveman or some shit. It's nice. Yeah.
I'll have to try that. It's like, it's always weirded me out to be too far away from like shelter or like somewhere, because it's like, if it gets weird, I don't want to be out, you know? So I have to take a really low dose, I guess, and work my way up. But I definitely agree. It feels more organic. And mushrooms, like if people ask me like if they're going to do mushrooms, I'm like, oh, go rent a cabin, go in the woods, go be in nature. Like, do not be in the city if you can. So the few times that I have taken, I was in nature, but I was like at a cabin. So
different experience with LSD. I've had one. I made a LSD trip simulation in Chile, Valparaiso, and I did a quarter tab there. That was like my first psychedelic trip in like 3 years, right? So this was my very, very first trip after that whole traumatic like ayahuasca and iboga and all that ordeal. And this was in Chile, which now actually it's quite sad because it's complete chaos. There's like a revolution, riots, like fucking insanity, absolutely insanity. And just for those people listening at home where they saw the LSD trip simulation and they comment below like, this place will be perfect to trip. No, it's like maybe because like I'm half Chilean. I speak Spanish. I'm with locals. It's different because I can at least kind of tap into that culture and just, you know what I mean? I'm not like purely a tourist. Whereas if you're just some normal white dude who doesn't speak Spanish tripping on acid through this city, you're going to get robbed. You're going to get fucked up. Don't do it.
Yeah.
And it's going to turn really traumatic. So yeah, I just wanted to put that out there. Not like you could trip there right now anyway, but that one I found really weird, man, because with LSD I was like going through this city, but the city felt organic, like even like the city sort of like a manifestation of just humans, you know. It's really weird because like sometimes you look at buildings and phones and technology and all that kind of stuff and you see it as lack of life, but on this state I felt that it was all organic, it was all alive, and all the synchronicities were like times a million. You know, you just, for example, you just start having a conversation and they would have the exact graffiti artwork that would depict what you were just saying, and then a dude will pop up around the corner and that would relate to that. It's that kind of shit. So weird, but
it's magical. It's like magical when that stuff happens, but it also like weirds me out in a way, because it's like that's like everything is like, I don't know what I think about it, but
everything is
beautiful,
weird.
but it's everything is weird. Yeah, but it's like it's weird on such a level that like I've never heard anyone like been able to explain. And so then I get that part freaks me out, because it's so, I feel like we're just these monkeys that have no idea what's going on, and we're so far removed from what real reality is.
Yeah,
and that shouldn't be scary. I should just enjoy it and just do whatever. But it gets me sometimes.
Yeah, like we're quite disconnected to like our roots, and just disconnected. I get those kind of really intense realizations. I've had them on mushrooms before, just like that. You know, when you just connect with the overwhelming authority, the Matrix kind of Agent Smith shit, like cops and all that. I don't know, it's so overwhelming, and how much atrocities there are in the world, and you tap into that, the horrors of the Matrix or whatever you want to call it. And it's terrifying. Yeah. Sometimes it really is terrifying. With LSD, I feel like I have a lot more control. So like I could navigate through this city. Something really fucked up could happen in front of me. And like, I'll acknowledge it, I'll honor it, but I don't let it affect me. Whereas with mushrooms, I feel like if I saw something really horrible, I'd just crawl up into a fetal position and just cry probably.
Yeah. But, do you ever have a moment on a psychedelic? Because I have this on mushrooms quite a bit, where I look at my body and it just feels really weird that I'm in like your own skin.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're just like, what the human? Like, when I look at my knee and I'm like, that is the weirdest thing. Like,
What is this organic matter?
Yeah,
Yeah,
like the
just looking at
skin
your
just
hands.
looks weird, and it's like I can't believe I'm actually in this. That's weird. So
Yeah, where do you think this is going? This whole psychedelic movement, or whatever you want to call it. Do you think it will get to the stage where we can integrate it within our culture with psychotherapy and shamanic practices and stuff, or do you think that we're going to have another scapegoat like in the 60s and then they're just going to be banned all over again?
oh no, I think we're past that. At least here, I've seen just in the time that I started my channel to now, I've had um, just the amount of people that are interested. When I first started, everyone was like, "You do drugs." Like they just,
Yeah,
they couldn't see DMT. That's a drug. That's heroin. Like there was no separation.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
now there's definitely people of all ages. Even into like 70s or 80s, they'd be like, "Oh yeah, I'm into psychedelics," or I heard so and so talking about it. Like this one father emailed me saying that he was really hard on his son because he caught him doing mushrooms or something,
Right.
and he thought that was a super bad drug. Kicked him out of the house, or he said, "If I catch you doing that again, and I'll kick you out of the house." Caught him doing it again, kicked him out of the house. The son ended up like committing suicide,
Oh
and
shit.
he felt terrible about it, but he still was like, drugs are bad, whatever. And then he goes, I went to go watch an author talk. um Someone of just a normal everyday author that he respected. He went to go watch him do a talk, and that author's talk was about psychedelics. And he goes, he felt like his blood boiling, and he kept telling himself, no, I have to like sit here and like listen to it. And by the end he was like, oh shit, like psychedelics are actually helping a lot of people, and they're doing good things. And he wrote me this really long email saying, like, I want to be better. What should I do? Like, what should I try for the first time? And I was just like, this is
Wow.
amazing that you have made that turn.
Yeah,
And
what
so
a
that just gave,
journey.
and I think he was like in the South. Like, well, I don't know if you know much about the United States, but like the South is not known for being super open about this sort of stuff, or like.
I've seen the movies.
So, and this guy was from here, and I was just like, wow, like we have come such a far way in just a few years. And just in terms of all of my friends, like none of my friends have said, oh, you do drugs anymore. They're just like, oh, I've heard about ayahuasca. I saw Chelsea
Yeah.
Handler did ayahuasca, and like it's in all of these TV shows now. So I think ayahuasca and mushrooms, a lot of people are open to mushrooms. I think acid's still scary for people,
Yeah, yeah,
rightly so, because they call it acid. It sounds scary.
yeah.
um
And that was the one
but
that was the scapegoat for the whole psychedelic thing in the 60s,
yeah,
because that was the one
but
that people were freaking out on.
I don't see that. I just don't see people see through that now. And now that we have the internet, I think people, um, I'm always optimistic about the internet. I thought the internet was going to save the planet because I was like, oh, you can have information about anything. Everyone's going to be really smart. Turns out that didn't really work out, but
I don't know if you've seen that Netflix special, Ronnie Cheng. It's like called Asian
no.
Comedian Destroys America or something. Yeah, he it just reminds me of something he said, and he goes like, "Who would have thought that having access to all of human knowledge would have made us more stupid?"
Yeah, exactly.
And that can
So
that can happen. I even relate that just with life or having a psychedelic experience. When there's too much information and it gets overwhelming, then it just adds confusion, and now you're in this limbo state because you don't know what's right, what's wrong, which way you're supposed to go, and then you're just
right,
like, "What the fuck? What am I doing here?" But man, like,
just look at cat videos.
yeah, but man, what you're saying about how like the stigma on psychedelics, how they've changed, because sometimes I forget about this, and I think back when I first started making YouTube videos, I got the same shit. Like people thought it was just drugs. People were
Hmm.
just completely I was like really embarrassed of my channel. I didn't tell anyone that I was doing what I was doing for like
Yeah,
3 years
me neither.
until people
Hmm.
actually found me. I remember I had a workmate. She's like, "Are you on YouTube? I think I may have stumbled onto you." And I'm like, "What were you searching?" to
Right.
stumble. Yeah, yeah. So she found like my mushroom video. But man, it's changed so much now. It's actually quite unbelievable. So
Hmm.
I think now maybe because it's so accepted, or at least in my little bubble of reality, the people that I'm connecting with, everyone's open with it.
Hmm.
So I think now I'm more open to talking about not even the negative side, but just like both sides of polarity and what can happen. Because I feel like psychedelics, like any technology, really, technological tool that can be used for good or for bad. Like, it just really depends on how you use it, where you're doing it, who you're doing it with, what type of person you are, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's like the internet, for example. We can't say that the internet has purely been a good thing. Maybe overall it has, and it has some positive benefits,
right.
but can it really... I don't know. It's like I said, any tool. Like the analogy I use is like a knife, for example. You can use a knife to cut fruit and feed your family, or you can use it to murder another human being. Pretty fucking extreme
right.
results, but at the same time, it's the same tool. And but I think now we've learned from the mistakes of the hippie era. We're a lot more vigilant. I think the scientific literature is a lot more rigorous. You know, like we're really taking that seriously, making sure we're building that foundation. And even now with MDMA research, treating PTSD, psilocybin, all of it, man. So it's quite amazing times to be alive. So microdosing, for example, that's a relatively new thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely, yeah, because there's just been a lot of even just like regular news articles, just people praising, mushrooms. And that's what I used to always show people when they'd be like, oh, these drugs are bad. And it's like, no, they've actually proven this helps with depression.
Yeah, yeah.
Like when you can point to like a scientific study, that's what helps a lot. So
exactly. I would even say the helping you feel more empathy is like a massive thing of psychedelics. Very common thing that people come back with. They just feel more interconnected. I think that's one of my favorite things about psychedelics, and where I see how profound they are and how they can help people is that, because I feel like just that lack of empathy is such a huge part of what's disconnecting us and why people do horrible things to each other, because they don't have that connection. Like, dude, that's just you living another life. Like, how can you act this way? And I'm not pretending like I'm perfect. I can be a real prick and an asshole, and I go unconscious. I go through my cycles. But even then, I always have that, I don't know, that insight of that we are connected. Everyone is going through this human plane together. We need to be kind, more kind to each other. I watched Joker the other night. Have you seen that one with Joaquin Phoenix? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Just that, like, imagine if someone came along and had a chat with him, or like gave him a hug, or say, hey man, let's hang out, let's have a coffee. Just like one kind act from one stranger, how completely different that story would have played out. You know what I mean? Like, the world can be so fucking brutal, and it's so tragic that I have to laugh. Mental transmutation, I guess.
Yeah.
But man, I just think about those times, and that's why it's so important. Now I'm just preaching and ranting, but yeah, be kind. That's what I have to say. Yeah,
I definitely don't understand how you can do psychedelics and be an asshole. I know there are people, I guess, that have pulled that off, but to me, it seems like
it's hard.
It seems like it's really hard to do. It's hard to keep that like fucked up mindset, I guess. Like, it's hard. I would feel like it would be hard to be like really racist or I don't know.
But that's because you're a good person, though. So, well, no, because you have to think about that. Because I always think because sometimes people think like, oh, I could never do this. How could other people do that? And I think I can see exactly how other people could do it, because there is like some sick minds, and I could see, like, rare, but I could see how you could use. That's why in Peru, man, I went through the markets. I've seen it. Dark shamans who use these tools, and they put conscious thought into like hurting other people, or even brewing some
I always forget
potion
about the
to
dark
like
side of everything.
Just to kill people, like, you know what I mean? And they take these psychedelics and they get more narcissistic and more psychopathic and more powers and just fucking stirring the cauldron. And that it sounds like some made up Harry Potter scene, but where do you think Harry Potter gets these ideas from? It's all real, man.
Yeah. Yeah,
even if it's
like a lot of shamans that get accused of groping or sexually assaulting. So yeah, I get it.
And this is not even about the plant at all. It's just the shamans. Whenever there's money to be made, of course, charlatans are going to be attracted to it. It's just human nature. So it's just being vigilant. That's all. It's like you can still be spiritual and loving and kind, but still be grounded. You can still be like, you still have to have that bit of an asshole aspect to you in terms of like weeding out the crowd and not being too open, too vulnerable. You got to always keep an eye, or at least acknowledge that there is a dark side to everything. Just don't be a buzzkill about it. That's all. There's always a balance.
I guess that's what the hardest thing that I currently have is like how to be a human in this existence without being too human. I guess like if you step outside of, like when I first started into all of this, I was way more like probably materialistic, and I cared way more about like succeeding and doing these certain, achieving certain things. And then I feel with enough psychedelics, like that got taken away, and I'm like, I don't care as much. But I don't know how to operate not caring, Like I'm totally happy. Like part of me is like, I really want to go live in a car. Like I want to just like travel around. And to me, my friends are like, that's weird. But it's like, I just don't care about having the normal things anymore.
Yeah.
Did you have that at all? Like, or is that
always, man? Sometimes I wish I could just make myself want to care about money more. Just so so it could be easier that way. Like you said before, like you've had those moments where you're like, fuck, you know what? Fuck all this spiritual knowledge. I wish I could just go back to being a normal Joe, just, living life, working.
I wish I could be more attached to things. Like, because I had a roommate, and she moved out. And so like I ended up selling all my stuff and going to Bali, living in Bali for a month in Thailand. And then when I got back here, I was like, oh, I should get an apartment again. But I was like, yeah, but I don't want one. I kind of like not having, like being tied to anything. And I don't know if that's a result of psychedelics or what. Or if it's just, midlife crisis, but it's
non-attachment.
It's just I've grown very unattached to most things, and I used to like have a buying, I guess, addiction. I would just always buying things, So it's like I wish I could go back to that because it's more normal and I can fit into society better.
It's just easier. It's easier.
Yeah, it's easier.
Yeah, like Uncle Ben from Spider-Man said, with great power comes great responsibility. And there is a price for having this wisdom, you know what I mean? Like knowing that you can do better, it's like now you have to. You can't, how can you get this profound, great knowledge on how to live a better human life and be kinder to people and then not do it? To get that knowledge and not do it, the karma, I feel like it amplifies in a way, or it multiplies. Like, I don't know, like for example, there's being ignorant and not knowing not to do something, and then there's knowing that you shouldn't do it, but you do it anyway. The karmic debt that comes back to you, it's a lot more severe. That's how I've kind of realized in my own journey. So, it's more that having this thing, and it's like, oh, okay, fuck, what do I do with this? I don't know.
It's all this, but it's hard to be in a relationship that way, and it's like, because people don't want to live that way, I don't know if I'm making sense, but yeah. Anyways, something else, different topic.
Yeah, man. When's the last time? Was that ayahuasca experience that you had? Was that your last psychedelic trip?
Actually, no, I did mushrooms a few weeks ago, actually. It was a small amount, but it was, so I'm really into, we're having our presidential debate. We're going to have a new president, and I really get into politics, and we're like, well, let's take some mushrooms and watch a debate. And that's like the worst possible thing.
That sounds like the worst trip
we
ever.
Turned it on, like the mushrooms were kicking in, and we turned it on, and we're like, we don't like this. I don't want to do this. Like, this is not, watching two old men yell at each other is like the worst possible feeling. And then that was also right when the quarantine was hitting. And I could just feel like I felt everyone's fear in the town. And I just felt like this big weight. And I was like, okay, I don't want to do psychedelics until the world calms down, because there was just too much anger and fear. And I felt like I could feel it. And it was not pleasant. But before that, I think ayahuasca was the last thing I had tried. So I think it's also important. Like, how often would you say that you do it? You said you went 3 years without doing it.
Yeah.
Is that what you said?
Yeah.
3 years in between trips.
Exactly. With any other, like for example, mushrooms had maybe once a year. Yeah. Maybe twice. If it's like a small dose and everything goes all fine and dandy, then I might sneak another one in there.
Because if you've...
But in terms of big doses... Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I just want to ask, because the reason I ask that is like I feel, I don't know if you do, but I get approached by a lot of people that seemingly act like I just always am doing psychedelics. And I have to
Right.
be like, no, it's not something that you do all the time. It's like, it's very sporadic. And like, yeah, sometimes you'll go years without doing it. That's the normal way to do it.
Exactly.
Like, but I feel like I've run into some people where they're like doing it every weekend. And I'm like, no, what are you doing? Like,
Yeah, that's insane. I have
good.
this. I have the same projections from people who think that I just trip all the time. It's been the
Yeah.
case since I started the channel, and I guess that's just the price I had to pay to make a
Right.
cool psychedelic channel. No, I don't do it a lot. I just like to talk about them a lot. That's
Yeah.
the difference, because it's just fascinating. And it's not even like psychedelics themselves. Well, like it is, but it's more the states that they induce. I think that they're their own thing, man. I don't know. Do
They
you
stick.
do you think that you can get to these states through meditation, or do you think that there is a certain aspect of reality that only psychedelics can take you in?
I mean, I feel like those psychedelics are, you can only get there via psychedelics. I mean, I've had people swear to me up and down that they see what I've seen on during meditation.
Mm-hmm.
I have a really hard time believing them. Like I've experienced some spiritual sort of things on meditation, but it's never to the same degree that it did on like
Right.
DMT or LSD. Like it's
Didn't have
like
the
in
oomph.
living color. Yeah, it didn't. Yeah, exactly. It's not as real. It's like, okay, it's a faint thing that I'm maybe seeing in my head,
Right.
while DMT is like, no, I am somewhere else. Like I am
Mm.
experiencing a different realm, and it's just as real as here. So
Mm.
I have a hard time believing you can get there with meditation, but people say you can, so maybe. I'm not going to say that they're wrong, but
Yeah,
I want them
yeah.
to try a psychedelic and get back to me.
Again, you just really got to be vigilant and know what you're getting yourself into, and I don't know, because I feel like if you're very maybe easily manipulated, or maybe you're into like dark magic spells, then I would say maybe don't do ayahuasca. It'd be so easy for them to just use you as a puppet and probably go towards a certain direction that may not be the best. So I'm always like vigilant of that. I can even be a bit over paranoid with that kind of stuff, but fuck, it just feels so real that I just don't want to. I don't want to fuck with that.
Yeah. I do have to say, because I just got reminded, I was at this Arthur Findlay College in the UK where they talk about healing and psychics and mediums and whatever. And we did this guided meditation in class. And I went to a place where, okay, so the way I would describe it is, you know, like if you're standing in like a beam of light and you kind of feel like this energy. I felt like I was on a spotlight, and the whole body, my body was like this really loud vibration. And I felt like if I wanted to, I could pop out. I could wake up not in this existence anymore. Like I could,
Whoa.
and it scared me. Like I felt like I had I felt like I was given the option that I would just die. But I was worried that everyone in the room would just see my body fall and die, and it scared me. So I was like, no, I got to hold on. But that was the only time I've ever meditated where it felt almost like a psychedelic trip. And afterwards, I even told the person in the room that was leading the meditation, I was like, I said, I didn't know this was possible without drugs. Like I even said that because I was like, I didn't, not that I saw anything. It was just this overwhelming, vibration, or it was similar to 5-MeO.
Whoa. Interesting. I've heard people have
Not-
similar
not-
experiences with deep breathing meditation, so maybe there is something
Yeah.
to it.
I mean, have you had anything do you meditate? Do you have any spiritual experiences?
Yeah, I meditate, and yeah, sure. I mean, sometimes I might have faint visuals, splotches of color, but it's sort of like, yeah, it's just in my mind. But I've never had like that overwhelming feeling where there is something bigger than myself in my presence, or getting overwhelmed with visuals that I just couldn't handle or whatever. No, never to that extent. Not even close. Not. I'm sure it's possible.
Would you say it's possible? Are you sure it's possible?
I don't know, man. I don't know, because like
It's a yeah.
because people could explain their psychedelic experience, and then someone could hear that and be like, "No, I've had that," but you're just it's a reference that you can't really confirm. You're comparing your experiences your experience to someone else's explanation. So you're not inside their head. You don't really know if you're having that exact experience.
Right.
And maybe once you take the psychedelic, I can see how you open up certain portals, and then once you've consumed that psychedelic, it stays with you forever, and then you can access it forever through just, meditative practices or other modalities. In that way, for sure. But I think if you had zero reference for what, let's say, DMT is, actually, you know what? The human body is pretty fucking amazing, man. Maybe there is. I'm going to flip-flop on what I was about to say. I think it is possible. I've never had this experience.
Right.
But like I said, we're just connected with the whole universe. So I don't see why not, actually. I just think you'd have to be like a advanced mage, or I don't know, you have to be quite advanced in your practice for you to really go to those realms without taking any drugs. I would actually say going to those realms without taking psychedelics would be a safer way to do it. And if I could go to those realms without ever taking psychedelics, I would never trip again. But I can't go there. Yeah. Well, I shouldn't say can't, but I just haven't. And
that's what I think you hit the nail on the head, where it's like, I think if you do the substance, it opens that door and then you can access it later, because that's what that meditation felt like. I felt like I was tapping back into something that I had experienced before, or it kind of had opened the portal, as they would say.
Exactly. But, exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's because it was a totally, that makes sense.
Awesome, man. You know what? I reckon that's a good way to end the podcast. Fucking interesting shit, man. Yeah. Thanks for jumping on. I appreciate what you're doing on YouTube. I like the way you create videos. Got a good storytelling element to it. Very cinematic.
Thank you.
Can't wait to hear how your journey continues.
Oh, cool. I'm going to combine them all into one video, because it's like, I don't know. I like breaking them up into smaller ones just because it's easier to do, as you probably know. To edit them, it takes forever. So
definitely.
Yeah. Cool. Well, good luck with all your videos.
Yeah,
you have probably a fuck ton of content that you have to...
A lot, I know. I'm getting to the point where I'm going to have to get a additional editor or something, just because it's just... The amount of content that I have to go through is just... I don't know. I'm getting a bit behind, but it's good.
Good.
Especially during these times, right? It's quarantine. I guess now would be the time to work on all this shit, so I don't have to film anything new for a while. But it's interesting. Cool. Yeah, you should see actually.
Cool, man. You're an inspiration. So I've always looked at your channel as like what I would like to be. And so I saw you. I was like, I want to be 10,000. You made 10,000. You made 100. Now you're almost at 200. So it's fucking cool.
Fuck yeah.
So good for you.
Same to you, man. You're almost like 100K now. You get your shiny little plaque.
I stall. I go like long periods of time without making anything. So I do it to myself. It's the whole self-sabotage thing. Well, cool.
Awesome, man. Yeah. Well, we'll keep in touch, and all the best with the quarantine. Stay safe.
Yeah, stay safe, man.
Wash your hands.
Yeah, exactly.
Just before you go, where can people find you? Like, if you want to plug any social media pages or...
It's all Shaman Oaks, everything. Shaman Oaks, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. And then I have my healing channel, which is Shaman Oaks Healing, which is just healing videos if you want to give that a shot.
Awesome, man. Well, I'll leave the links in the description box below, and
cool.
Talk to you next time.
Sweet.
I also want to give a shout out to my good friend Jason Stevenson, who does awesome free guided meditations. It's always good to do some meditation training and prep your mind for these type of psychedelic experiences. So go check out the description box below, click the link, and I'll see you on the other side. Peace.